We're back with more on this breaking news development. ABC News is reporting tonight that lawyers on behalf of President Donald Trump have sent a letter to former White House Chief Strategist Stephen Bannon demanding that he refrain from making disparaging comments against the president and his family. The letter seems to indicate that Steve Bannon has breached a confidentiality agreement. It says, having breached the agreement by, among other things, communicating with the author Michael Wolff about Mr. Trump, his family members, and the company, meaning the campaign, disclosing confidential information to Mr. Wolff and making disparaging statements, and in some cases outright defamatory statements to Mr. Wolff about Mr. Trump and his family members, saying all of that is a violation of a confidentiality agreement that Steve Bannon, according to this letter, signed with the Trump campaign. We are joined by Tim O'Brien. He's the executive editor of Bloomberg View, and he's the author of Trump Nation, The Art of Being the Donald, one of Donald Trump's biographers. Joyce Vance, former federal prosecutor, is back with us. And Joyce, I just want to go to the legal point here. This is a fascinating thing because they're saying that he signed a confidentiality agreement, non-disparaging term agreements for the campaign. So there's the legal question of how much of this interviewing was done after the campaign. And then there's also the problem of you might have this signed agreement with him, but for practical purposes, you don't really have a legal remedy because the only way to stop him from violating this agreement is to take him into court and sue him, in which case all of this stuff becomes public.
Absolutely, and the devil is in the details on these agreements. As you point out, it could be that it only applied during the campaign. Hard to imagine that it would apply during the actual run of the administration, because everything that happens, of course, during an administration is public record, is fair game in some sense. So there'll be that issue of what did the details look like, even if the president did want to try to pursue this. And then we hear that Mr. Wolff had a great deal of access, that the president himself gave him permission to have these conversations. So it may be that Bannon will have an argument that he was having these conversations pursuant to the president's agreement and acquiescence in it, and that would make it awfully difficult to maintain that he violated a non-disclosure agreement. And
Tim O'Brien, we've been saying all night that no one has confirmed the contents of Michael Wolff's book. NBC News has not confirmed any of the contents of this book. We've been discussing it on that unconfirmed basis. This letter tonight from the Trump lawyers is as much confirmation as they could possibly supply. They are saying to Stephen Bannon, we believe that you have indeed supplied all of these disparaging statements in this book, and that you've done it in violation of this non-disclosure agreement that you had with the campaign.
And Bannon himself hasn't pushed back on any of this stuff during the day.
Bannon had all day to say, I didn't say this.
And there were other members of the Trump orbit who did stand up today and say they were misquoted, et cetera, et cetera. There wasn't a peep from Bannon, and the most damaging claims in Michael's book come from Bannon himself. Go ahead.
And I was going to say, sue is always a first instinct of Donald Trump's. Well, I suspect that you detect Donald Trump in this cease and desist order tonight.
Right, and I think the president often forgets that as his life has progressed, he's increasingly become the most public of public figures. The free speech standards around him are deep and powerful. I don't know what legal ground he has to stand on in trying to issue a cease and desist to Bannon, and in fact, it's counterproductive because, as you noted earlier, it only gives more gravitas to Bannon's claims.
And Joyce, there's no such thing, of course, in the federal government, this notion of working in the White House and signing some kind of non-disclosure, personal non-disclosure, civil kind of agreement like this that they were talking about.
In fact, you know, we've heard this controversy about the president's tweets when early on he was deleting tweets. And the reason we heard that controversy is because these are all public record documents. Written communications are preserved. In many cases, even oral conversations will be noted and preserved. Part of the foundational principles of our government is that all of these conversations, except within the scope of executive privilege, which is narrow, should be available both for historians and also so citizens can fully understand and appreciate what's going on in their government.
And here's just an example of some of the disparaging comments in the book that the president and his lawyers are trying to stop. Steve Bannon has apparently, according to the book, already said this, and it's in the book, talking about Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner. She was a non-event on the campaign. She became a White House staffer, and that's when people suddenly realized she's dumb as a brick, a little marketing savvy, and has a look, but as far as understanding actually how the world works and what politics is and what it means, nothing. Once you expose that, you lose such credibility. Jared just kind of flits in and does the Arab stuff. And Tim, that certainly sounds like Steve Bannon speaking in the White House, past the jurisdiction of any civil non-disclosure form that he might have signed for the campaign.
You know, it's never been hard to get close to Donald Trump. He has given carte blanche to reporters over the years endlessly. This is not a new phenomenon. And I think Bannon essentially has been given a get-out-of-jail-free card by the president, because it would seem that the president empowered everyone in his White House to talk to Michael Wolff willy-nilly.
Let's see. We've got a new lawyer's statement saying legal action is imminent. This is from Charles Harder, saying the law firm represents President Donald J. Trump and Donald J. Trump for President, Inc. on behalf of our clients. Legal notice was issued today to Stephen K. Bannon that his actions of communicating with author Michael Wolff regarding an upcoming book give rise to numerous legal claims, including defamation by libel and slander and breach of his written confidentiality and non-disparagement agreement with our clients. Legal action is imminent. And Joyce Vance, I think we can be absolutely sure legal action is not imminent. This is as empty a lawyer threat as I have ever held in my hands. These words are out there. They're in the book. And now what Donald Trump seems to be doing through his lawyers is confirming his own personal belief that Steve Bannon did indeed say all of these words to Michael Wolff.
Seems like a safe bet that legal action is not imminent here.
And again, Joyce, just to go through it, one of the reasons for that is the damage is all done to them. It's all in the book. There's nothing they will be able to do through civil action to get that book removed. And to engage in a lawsuit with Steve Bannon allows Steve Bannon to immediately subpoena Donald Trump as a witness, to subpoena Ivanka Trump as a witness, Jared Kushner as a witness for depositions, and all this sort of stuff for years on end.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You know, I remember many years ago when Pat Robertson was running for the presidency, and he sued a couple of a sitting congressman and a former congressman for libel over his Vietnam War record. And that became a very painful process for him, because then everybody was able to depose him. He was deposed at length. Some unpleasant truths came out, and ultimately he terminated that lawsuit, saying that it was inconsistent with continuing to run his campaign. That experience would be only magnified for President Trump, who would see everyone around him subpoenaed for depositions.
And Tim, the last time Donald Trump threatened a lawsuit, he was lying. He said he was going to sue all the women who accused him of sexual assault and sexual harassment during the campaign. He, of course, was lying about that and did not dare sue any one of them.
And he also threatened the New York Times. I think one of the things to remember is that a threat of a lawsuit from Donald Trump usually doesn't amount to much more than saber rattling. He rarely follows through.
We're going to have to leave it there. Tim O'Brien and Joyce Vance, thank you both for sticking with us tonight. Really appreciate it.